of the samsaric aspect of the consciousness and of the nirvanic aspect consciousness. But they are inseparable. This is non-dualistic philosophy, not dualistic philosophy. They are inseparable. Hmm? So we have all in our consciousness the vasanas, hmm? however you, the latent tendencies to purity and the latent tendencies to the impure. They are mingled together. Hmm? And these impure tendencies, they bring the mind to the states of dukkha. The pure tendencies are those tendencies which reveal the suchness, and such the liberation from the dukkha. The liberation from the dukkha comes from the suchness. The pure consciousness we have learned and the impure consciousness, both, they have the gross aspect, which are the six consciousnesses based on mental consciousness. And we have also learned these gross consciousnesses, six consciousnesses, they are based in manas. Manas is the alaya and the manifestation of alaya, which is continuity, we have learned. And continuity of what? Continuity of Vedana, to which we cling. But in the subtle consciousness, we understand that clinging to Vedana is what takes us away from suchness. In the uh, Pushenmye, in the nirvanic side of the consciousness, we understand that. So we do not rely on thinking, we rely on non-dualism. So thinking manifests either as taking us to the pure aspect of consciousness or taking us to the impure aspect of consciousness. Both aspects of consciousness, they are relative. Whatever is relative is the worldly reality. The absolute reality is not relative. This relative happens in our mind, where the pure and the impure mingles. We come through this pure and the impure mingles, and the impure, like the pure, like the mind, has a two aspect, the gross aspect and the subtle aspect. So as we discover more the gross and subtle aspect of the ignorance, we also discover, because this is non-dual, we also discover the gross and subtle aspects of the purity of that mind which takes us to the purity. But that mind which takes us to the purity is not separable from the mind which takes us away from the purity. Because the mind is one, you have learned. And that one mind is a dharma here. There is no other dharma. Hmm? So, is it becoming clear now? It should be clear. Otherwise, I will repeat it again and again and again until you become fed up. Huh? This should be very clear, because uh, on this is based the following explanations and the practice. Huh? We should see it very clearly. We are, our purity and impurity in the mind are our vasanas, our sichi. Our sichi is what it has the either the aspect of uh, bringing us to purity, and also the aspect which brings us away from purity. All these are just vasanas, the latent tendencies of the mind. And they are mingled. When you understand the gross defilement. You can only understand gross defilement by the gross mind. When you under subtle defilement, you can only understand by the subtle mind. So this is the universe. The universe is always a relation of one and the other. But our consciousness in its nature hmm, has no uh, good, no bad, nor this, nor that, because it is empty, and this emptiness is self luminous. And that is to be realized in samadhi. Hmm? In samadhi of suchness, we do not need to think, because the suchness does not think. But in order to understand suchness, we have to think. But whenever we think, it has a gross aspect and it has a subtle aspect. Hmm? And the gross aspect can only remove the gross defilements, but it cannot remove the vasanas which make the mind move. It is only the most subtle aspects which can then remove the vasanas and replace them by the uh, purity of suchness. And this happens by the practice of the paramis. Hmm? Paramis, the deep practice of paramis, reveal based on the transcendental wisdom, Poje Polomi. Poje Polomi is a non dualistic wisdom. This non dualistic wisdom and compassion with the practice of the paramis can remove all ignorance that hides the true nature of our mind, which is suchness. It has always been that, it is now, and it will always be in the future, but we don't see it because of the uh, karmic consciousness, which hides the suchness. But it hides the suchness in a subtle way, in the form of manas, and it hides the suchness in a more gross way, in the form of the sick consciousnesses. But nevertheless, when the mind moves, it hides the suchness. And when the suchness is hidden, we identify, as we have seen, with our ideas and take our ideas to be the world. But our ideas are just concepts, which are all different in different states of existence, as explained so wonderfully in the Cheng Wei Shalun, in the five Shastras of the Maitreya. So, are you getting some clarity now? Can we start with the text?
Yes, Pastor. Uh, please continue, Pastor. Yeah.
So, no, if you have still any doubts, then you should ask, because uh, otherwise you will not understand what's going on. So now, did you understand my explanation? Did you record it? Uh, you can record it and listen to it again and again, so that we don't need to say the same thing every time. No,
Yes, Pastor. It's already recorded.
it's recorded and it is clear, huh?
Yes, Pastor.
Okay. So now you have some clarity.
Yes, I still still
Well, we have to practice. You cannot.
yes, because here Pastor like Pastor said that when we are thinking actually I there is no clarity for as long as my practice, when I saw my the mind is moving, and then there is no clarity again, Faster. I think
Well, there is a clarity, but superficial clarity. Superficial clarity is a guide for deep clarity. So study is very important.
yes, yes.
We have to start always with the superficial to go to the deep. We cannot start with the deep because we will not understand.
Yes, yes, yes.
So that is why the study is so important. Why not study and devote more time uh, and ask someone if I have learned something and I don't know much? I know very little. Just there's a cup of water in the great ocean of wisdom. But still, if I have understood something, it's because I have been reading and asking questions and practicing. No, there is no other way.
Yes, Faster. Faster. Actually, non-dualistic is, can we say, the non-dualistic actually is not non-discriminating, Pastor?
Yes, non-discriminating and non-discriminating should not go against the correct discrimination or correct understanding. So we need to study Nagarjuna, we need to study Asanga, we need to study the Buddhist philosophy because they lead us to uh, a deeper understanding of our experience, which we are always confronted with. We cannot jump out of our nature.
Yes,
huh?
Pastor.
And in this tradition, the non dualistic reality is our nature. It has always been like that. It is now and it is in the future. And we have to make effort to understand that this dualistic approach we only need to understand the non dualism. That is why the as long as one cling to any view, as far as non-dualistic philosophy is concerned, one has not understood non-dualism. Even when we cling to non-dualism, it is not non-dualism. Emptiness is not a concept. Emptiness is a reality. But we need a finger to see the full moon. If we don't have the finger, we will never see it. Is it
Pastor,
right?
yeah. Pastor, actually, I have experience like this, Pastor. When 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 the mind is not as stop discriminating uh, tr- I'm sorry for my bad English. It's like this differentiating
Differentiate,
mind.
yeah,
Yeah.
differentiating mind is
Yeah.
a necessity in life.
Hmm.
But when we cling to it, we cling to the self.
Yes, yes, Pastor.
When we don't cling to it, we get rid of the self
Yes.
because the self is always identified with the mind. The identify self with the body. Everybody sees, especially when one gets old, this body is going away. But we identify with the mind.
Yes.
And the mind with which we identify is the uh, idea, false idea of there being a self in the mind.
Pastor,
We-
actually, when we don't identify ourselves, actually, it's only like I'm when we practice not not to discriminating and not to uh,
Not
describe
to,
not
not to,
describing
not
something. And then,
Let's say differentiating, not differentiating is also differentiating.
okay.
Non differentiating is also differentiating. Hmm? So you cannot abandon differentiating by non differentiating. The non differentiating, again, is a concept. So if you cling to this concept, you don't understand the true nature of reality, which is inseparable from the true nature of our mind. And it is in this tradition non dualistic. Hmm? So uh, we, in order to live, we have to differentiate. It is impossible to live without differentiating. But the difference between us and the enlightened people, hmm, in the bodhisattva sense, enlightened, so these are very rare because those who have attained the bodhisattva bhumi, it is very, very rare. So when we attain the bodhisattva bhumi, then we completely stop identify with differentiating. We only use it to help others. This is the nature of the true mind, always connected with a function, which is helping others and not differentiating between self and the other. So, in this tradition, the individual realization is only skillful means, like Lotus Sutra, is only skillful means for the ultimate realization, which has to be non dualistic. And the skillful means for that is understanding of the nature of the mind. Now, in Mahayana philosophy, the difference between Madhyamika uh, and Yogacara is in Madhyamika, nothing has no is not real, has not some nature which is real. In this tradition, the mind has a real nature, and that is emptiness, suchness. So the mind is real. Without understanding the real nature of the mind, you cannot hmm, uh, m- make a revolution in mind from differentiating mind to uh, the non-differentiating mind. This is called a revolution. Hmm? And when the differentiating mind turns to wisdom, it differentiates, but just like mirror. Hmm? It does not need to hold to any differentiation. It just reflects things as they are. This Buddha teaches even in Theravada Buddhism. Dita, dita matam, in what we see, we should only understand the, the scene. In what we hear, only the heart. In what we think, only the thought. This is not so strange even to Theravada Buddhism. But Theravada Buddhism is still based on the idea of nirvana and the idea of individual liberation. Here, this tradition rejects, it only sees the individual liberation as the skillful means, hmm, like the Lotus Sutra explains. Buddha creates the illusion of a city in the forest to those who are tired of the uh, endless walking in the forest without end, so that they have some consolation that there is a place to reach. But ultimately, there is nothing to reach. Is it clear?
Yes, yes, Pastor.
Uh, Pastor, Pastor, I
Yes.
have a question. In this non-differentiating state, does it mean that uh, we are not able to like to recognize the name of the object we see, or how
We
it
can.
works?
Yes, but this name is completely different in uh, our experience, but it's completely different in the experience of others. So the name will appear, but even the concepts, even the birds, even the gods, they see on the base of the concept. But we have learned that this concept, they are the continuity of our mind, continuity in the six spheres of existence, which are called gati. And gati means just going. We are going from the one sphere of existence into another. And so we are using a different concepts. So when you learn many languages, and I like learning languages, you will see how our uh, concepts, our words, our names, our influence our behavior. When we speak Japanese, we behave in a different way. When we speak Spanish, we behave in a different way. Hmm? When we speak German, we behave in a different way. Hmm? Why? Because uh, this uh, this continuity is something very deep in our mind. And we understand the depths of this continuity only when we use the subtle mind, subtle consciousness. Then we can not only get disgusted from the feelings and clinging to the feelings, hmm, we can also uh, just reflect completely the reality as it is without even paying attention or investigating it, because the nature of the true reality is no thinking. The suchness does not need thinking. But when we think, we are relying on the concepts. And this concept, they are related to the continuity of our mind. And this continuity of our mind uh, brings clinging. We don't cling to the reality because reality is movement. We cling to the concepts of reality, which make the impression in the mind that this reality is something which is really there, object of clinging, separated from the subject of clinging. And that they are not separated, we can only understand by this subtle consciousness, which is here called manas. In this subtle consciousness are stored our seeds of previous experiences. And what we cling to is on the base of memory. And memory, there is no memory without thinking. Hmm?
Faster, one more question.
Yes.
Uh, so another, so in this state, non-differentiating mind, is someone still aware that he is like he's the one who perceives the objects in front of him? He's still
Well,
aware.
we have learned in the beginning, this is the tradition. The mind is only one, awareness is only one. But due to our ignorance, this one nature of the mind is hidden from us. But it has been always there. We are never separated from it. So in a Zen or in a non-dualistic tradition, it is taken for granted that uh, your mind is Buddha, but it is Buddha. If you meet a Buddha, kill the Buddha. You cannot catch it. If you catch it, then you don't understand the Buddha. Because the Buddha, as the Diamond Sutra explained, he cannot be uh, perceived by uh, differentiating mind. But still, without differentiating mind, we cannot live. Even Bodhidharma has to use differentiating mind. But this differentiating mind appears at the same time as a non-differentiating mind. Because we are not enlightened, this differentiating mind does not appear at the same time as a non-differentiating mind. So we are confused by reality. But reality is not divided. We are divided due to ignorance. Is it clear?
Better.
The reality is never divided. We are divided due to the seeds of ignorance which are so deep in our mind. So, according to the tradition, only the perfectly enlightened Buddha can reveal the full scale of suchness being the nature of the mind. Even Nagarjuna, even Asanga, even the Bodhidharma, nobody can fully grasp the suchness nature of the mind. But they are nearing it. They are nearing it because they have realized the Bodhisattva Bhumi. Bodhisattva Bhumi is called the Pramudita, the joyful mood. In this joy, you are never separated from the Buddha. Never. We are separated from the Buddha because we don't understand that the non differentiating consciousness and differentiating consciousness is just one consciousness. And this one consciousness has, we have learned in the beginning, has a great essence, great characteristics, and great functions. This is the message of this treatise. And it is very precious because, according to this philosophy, if you understand it, you are much closer to the enlightenment because the enlightenment is timeless. Suchness is timeless, but it moves in time. But they are inseparable. So we come to it again and again. The uh, the essence, Qi, which is in Chinese philosophy Li, the principle, cannot be separated from the characteristics Xiang, which is She. Li and She, they always together. If the Li is separated from the She, from the facts, then it has no use. But it is never separated. That's why we have explained this Ashwagosha, the author of this treatise, whoever it may be, is the first patriarch of Huayan. Huayan is teaching just that. No? Fazang teaches the Indrajala. The world is just the uh, net of Indra, where all the things reflect each other. So the in one atom is the whole universe, in the whole universe is one atom. This is a philosophy of this treatise. But because we don't see that our differentiation exists and comes from the one reality, therefore we are deluded. So we have to start with this. This is what uh, uh, the Dharma, which is one mind, is the source of all the phenomena. There is no other source. So shall we come to the text? Or any more doubts or questions? Let us ask them. No, no harm. Okay, we start.
Yes, Pastor, please.
So the text say, we have explained the last lessons how the ignorance in its gross and subtle form, the gross form are the six consciousnesses, subtle form is the manas that we know it comes again and again. How it forms through the intermediary of ignorance, which results in a karmic consciousness. Karmic consciousness are we, because our mind moves due to karmic consciousness. So we speak, we move, we think. Without the karmic consciousness, we can't do the job. But this karmic consciousness is rooted in this one mind. This is not what we see. Is rooted in the Buddha nature that we don't see. And this Buddha nature, just like the ignorance, they intermingle in our consciousness and form the vision of our world in the six spheres of existence. From the deepest hell to the highest heaven, it is just that consciousness. This is the Chittamatrata, mind only. And as long as we don't penetrate the true nature of the consciousness, which is one, so uh, so we will be in a subtle way or in a gross way, still separated from this truth. So now, just as in our consciousness, uh, the ignorance penetrates the suchness, and it happens from the gross to the subtle. We have learned the last lesson. The most gross is hanging on the objects, taking the objects to be something real there, outside of our mind. Hmm? Then, the more, when we understand the more subtle way, then we will also understand that this uh, mind which moves has this aspect of grossness, the six consciousnesses, and the aspect of subtleness, the manas, the five types of manas we have learned. And so we come to ignorance, and in ignorance also, this uh, aspect of ignorance and aspect of suchness, they mingle. Now we can, and so we have the vasanas, the the latent tendencies to ignorance in our mind, and we have also the latent ignorance to suchness. So now, after having explained the latent tendencies to ignorance, which makes us cling to the object, to the mind, which distinguishes the object as something really being there, and finally, the subtle mind, which distinguishes this moving mind, the karmic mind, as being the real mind. So, from the gross, holding to the object as something being really there, to holding to the mind, which discriminates the object, then to holding to the ignorance, which moves the mind. Then we come to the the latent tendencies of the suchness, which is a latent tendency of purity. But purity inside our alaya. The purity is always something relative in regard to the non-purity. There is no, uh, there is no, the nature of the mind is neither pure nor impure. It is ungraspable, unspeakable. It was explained before. That which is graspable, that which is seizable, this is the mind which moves. But the mind which moves and mind which does not move, they are intermingled. Hmm? Why? Because it will be explained the essence and its characteristics you cannot separate. So emptiness, suchness has the aspect uh, of emptiness and the aspect of non-emptiness. We have learned it before. Hmm? The non-emptiness is the characteristics of the essence which you cannot separate from the essence itself. Hmm? So how do the vasanas or these bijas or uh, these seeds in the mind of suchness produce pure dharmas? Here, the author says, because there is the dharma of suchness, suchness, like everything else, is dharma. And there is only actually one dharma, and that is a mind. It permeates avidya, woming. It permeates the uh, ignorance, literally non-science. Woming means non-science, non-clarity. We are in the state of non-clarity because we are identifying with a moving mind. Hmm? So we take, it was explained before, we take the waves to be the nature of the water, but the nature of the water of suchness is not the waves, but the wetness. We have explained it. So we mistake the waves for being the water because of ignorance. But we are also permeated by suchness, not only by ignorance. So, due to the strength of the causes and conditions of this permeations of or of the vasanas of suchness, we are influenced by the vasanas of suchness and the vasanas of ignorance. When the ignorance vasanas have the strength, then we believe what we see is really there, separated from the mind, and what we think is something real. The concept we take is something real, corresponding to the real objects which are there. And so we cling to this uh, illusionary mind, which is the source of the illusionary objects. Now, when this vasanas of suchness have the strength, when this uh, latent tendencies of suchness in the mind of all beings have a strength, when they don't have strength, we are in complete darkness. When they have the strength, we have insight here and there. And the first insight we have learned is that this uh, harmful thinking, we should stop, not to harm ourselves and not to harm others. This is where the permeation of suchness starts. We want to stop what is harmful. So we come to purification. So when these latent tendencies of suchness in our mind are become powerful, so we beings become disenchanted. hmm? I like this word, is nirveda, yenli. Disenchanted means we don't find any charm in this samsaric existence unless we uh, understand that the samsaric existence is something which is really not real. So we cannot really meditate. Hmm? We can only meditate when we understand that this samsaric existence is has there is a way out of it, and that is the influence of the power of the suchness. So we become disenchanted. hmm, in where disenchanted in our mind, because the power of the seeds of suchness is manifested. So become disenchanted with what is called the samsara dukkha, shenmie ku. hmm? Shenmie means arising and cessation. And this arising and cessation is trouble. If we don't understand that this arising and cessation is trouble, no way to become uh, to become religious in any way, whatever we believe, whether be it Buddhism or any other religion, unless we understand that this worldly existence as it is trouble, no way to become disenchanted. And we seek happiness in nirvana. hmm? It is the same whether we are uh, Shravakas, whether we are Bodhisattvas. But when we are Bodhisattvas, this nirvana means not our own nirvana, but it means a true state of existence, true state of mind, true state of all phenomena. So we seek happiness in nirvana as there are causes and conditions for illusionary thought to become disenchanted. So even when we become disenchanted from samsara, we are still subjected to illusionary thought. We still identify with illusionary thought. But this illusionary thought, they are productive, they lead to happiness. But the illusionary thoughts which are harmful, they lead to suffering. But as long as we are not enlightened bodhisattvas, so we have to rely on illusionary thoughts. So when we become uh, disenchanted from illusionary thoughts, and therefore we understand that these objects we understand through illusionary thoughts must be also illusionary. So there must be way out of this trouble of being in impermanence, which cannot bring lasting happiness. That's why the first bodhisattva bhumi, the real realization, which is in this tradition, bodhisattva realization, is a realization of the happiness of being connected always. You cannot lose this connection with the non dualistic mind. This is a real happiness. So uh, these illusionary thoughts, they permeate the suchness. So the aspect of the suchness becomes more and more powerful. When we understand that this samsara is really sorrowful, we uh, get try not to get too much attached to the objects outside, then automatically we also start to understand that we are attached to these objects outside due to our concepts, and our concepts are the result of our continuity. So we permeate the suchness through our illusionary thoughts, so that the suchness is revealed more and more clearly to us. Hmm? So uh, suchness permeates the asana, the suchness permeates the ignorance, is the root permeation, because the suchness is real. The ignorance permeate the suchness is the ignorance is not something real. Suchness is real. Because we understand that the suchness is real, we start our trip to realization by not allowing the harmful thoughts to continue. Then we will search for something that continues, by correct differentiation. The uh, meditation of the disciples and meditation of the beginning bodhisattvas is based on correct differentiation. Hmm? When the correct differentiation, we realize that the this impermanence is not real, then we have seeming realization. We have learned it, but it is not yet the true realization. The true realization, when the when we are have penetrated the uh, suchness nature of our mind and of our reality, which never leaves us. When we become enlightened bodhisattvas, it cannot leave us. So this permeation of mind through suchness is a root permeation, is a primary permeation. But because we are connected with ignorance, so we have the secondary permeation, which is responsible for our state of being in the enlightened and non-enlightened aspect of the mind at the same time. So as this primary aspect of the mind, which is suchness, gets power, so the aspect of ignorance becomes revealed. So that is why the purity and impurity, they also only related. Whatever is related is not the true reality. The true reality is transcends relation. But we cannot understand true reality without understanding relations. So this is Buddhism. We can only understand the ultimate reality by penetrating the nature of ignorance, by penetrating the nature of the impermanent reality in which we find ourselves. And this we only penetrate when this suchness aspect of the mind becomes very clear, becomes shining. It is a state of samadhi. So the text says, if let us use our translation, otherwise it will take a long time. If there is confidence in one's nature, that means in our uh, true nature, which is suchness. Our true nature is suchness. And because the suchness is the nature of the mind, it is also the nature of reality, because without mind there is no reality. If there is confidence in one's nature, one knows that mind's movement is illusionary. Hmm? So, if we get the realization of the Shravakas, we will also know that mind movement is illusionary. When we get the realization of the faith, when we practice a bodhisattva path, we practice the bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is the realization of the faith, realization of the faith in the nature of our mind, which is emptiness and luminosity. We have faith in it and we practice according to it. So all the elements of the Shravakas practice, hmm, mindfulness, right effort, right awareness, the bahushrutata, the knowledge, the vast knowledge based on the wisdom of hearing and wisdom of contemplation, and ultimately the shamatha, the practice of shamatha, they are all connected with the faith, practice of the faith. When we have realized our faith, then it is like, so to say, it is also like the realization of the Shravakas. It is a realization of that which stands. In Bodhisattva, it is based on realization of the faith. In the uh, Shravaka, it is based on the uh, direct realization of the non-reality of impermanence. When our mind turns away from impermanence to nirvana, which stays. But it doesn't mean we are abandoning impermanence. We only see that its impermanence is something illusionary. Same for the Shravaka. When we have the realization of the Shravaka based on correct differentiation, hmm, impermanence is trouble, impermanence uh, is not self, impermanence is impure. So also our mind turns to that which is the opposite, which stands. But this is still a partial realization. It is not yet realization of the true nature of reality, which is non dualistic. Whether it be by faith, as in the practice of the bodhisattvas, or be by uh, contemplation of impermanence. When we contemplate impermanence, we get more and more insight until impermanence becomes uh, unsupportable and the mind turns into that which is beyond impermanence. That is the uh, meditation of the disciples. The mind, in case of a bodhisattva, does the same feast, but based on the realization of the uh, faith. But the two realizations in Mahayana philosophy, they are not opposed. They can complement each other. if we give rise to great compassion and to the uh, non-dualistic wisdom. In the tradition of the disciples, once you realize the stream entry, you cannot become a bodhisattva. This is the Abhidharma of the disciples. But in the Abhidharma of the bodhisattvas, Yogachara, Bhumi Shastra, and so on, this is not true. Hmm? Any stage of practice based on correct differentiation, even an arahat, if he gives rise to great compassion and to non-dualistic great wisdom, he can realize the bodhisattva bhumi, and it will be much easier for him than for us because he has no defilements. We still do have. So if there is confidence, that means faith, shraddha, shin, in one's nature, one knows that mind movement is illusionary, hmm? Either by the Shravaka realization or by the Bodhisattva realization of the face, as there is real Gochara. There is a real object, hmm, which is not subjected to movement. And thus one cultivates, the text says, aloofness from Dharma. Very wonderful word. So one, if one realizes the bodhisattva path or one realizes a faith, then one uh, naturally practices samskara upeksha. Huh? Singsha, the uh, equanimity in regard to will formations. When we become enlightened or when we have realized the faith, we practice equanimity in regard to the will formations. Hmm? So the bodhisattva who has the faith, he practices the 10 practices of dwelling in the bodhicitta, of practicing according to the bodhicitta in parinama, in hui xiang. According to bodhicitta, he does not keep anything for himself. And this then makes his mind more and more aloof from the will formations. So he gets more and more clarity. Hmm? Then, if he practices the non dualistic path, or if he turns to the non dualistic path, which is possible even in the state of an arahat, then he is open for knowing according to the truth. Yatha bhuta jnana. Zhushi Quan. Zhu. He knows things according to the truth. And this is non-dualistic truth. There is no true object. There is no true subject. Hmm? All that exists is just suchness. And knowing suchness is being in samadhi. This is very important. This is what this treatise teaches. One who practices non-dualistic, he practices the samadhi of one samskara, Ishing samadhi. so as to realize that in each and every moment of the moving mind, he is not separated from suchness. And the suchness does not need to think, suchness does not need to pay any particular attention to anything. It just reflects things as they are. When we penetrate it, this is a great happiness, real happiness, which will never leave us. And this happiness is based on yatha bhuta jnana, on the knowledge of reality as it is, never separated from one mind, never separated from suchness. This suchness in the mind of the beings is called the Buddha nature. We are never separated from the Buddha nature. Impossible. Or it is called Zhulai Zhang. This Zhulai Zhang, the Mahayana Sutras teach, it is uh, reincarnating in the 6 spheres of existence. Reincarnating in the 6 spheres of existence. Why? Because there is no mind without an object. And the mind and the object, they are one reality, they are not separated reality. And this is what the Bodhisattva understands. So he realizes the 3 bodies, the Dharmakaya, Fashen, the Sambhogakaya, Paoshen, and the Nirmanakaya, the Yin Shen. So he is heading towards the true knowledge, the omniscience in all aspects. The Arahat, he has omniscience, but not in all aspects, because his omniscience is based on correct differentiation. The omniscience of the Buddha is based on going beyond differentiation and penetrating the true non-dualistic suchness nature of the mind. There is no other object than that. If you search for another object, then you are searching in the words of the Mahayana Sutras for the horns on the head of a rabbit, or for the second moon. So we are all, some way or another, searching for the second moon. As long as we are not very clear, as long as the power of suchness in our mind reveals more and more clearly the true nature of our mind, which is one, one Dharma. This one Dharma, as we have learned, has the great essence, great characteristics, and great functions which are inseparable. It is a reality of one Dharma, which is, according to Mahayana Sutras, which is empty of self-existent nature and self-luminous. It is a body of knowledge and the body of spontaneous karma. We have learned this before, of incomprehensible karma. We become part of it because with the realization of the bodhisattva stage, we go beyond differentiation, but we still remain in differentiation. How is it possible go beyond differentiation yet remain in differentiation? It is possible because reality is one. So after realizing the true nature of the mind, when we have the true realization of the bodhisattva, then what we practice? We practice a skillful means, the paramis, the 6 paramis, or the 10 paramis. They are the skillful means to strengthen the power of the permeation of suchness in the consciousness, which reveals the non existence of ignorance, the non real existence of ignorance. And the each of these paramis, they are interconnected, they are not separated. So the Mahayana scriptures teach, when we realize fully the dana parami, all the other paramis also we can realize. They are, because they are interconnected. Yet, in the first stage, in the pramudita stage, the emphasis is on the dana parami, because we understand that all the virtues not belong to individual mind, but belong to that which is beyond individuality. Hmm? The true virtue, as the Vajrachedika Sutra explains, the true virtue does not belong to uh, uh, any individual. The true virtue belongs to the true nature of the reality. When it has a power, this truth will be revealed. Then whatever we do, we are never separated from the true nature of reality. So, at first, we will be able to see that the true generosity belongs to the true reality. Then we will see that the true virtue, true morality, true discipline belongs to this reality, and so on and so on and so on. Everything that is real and good, the real good is beyond differentiation, belongs to this true nature of reality. When we have realized that, we are the Buddhas. And then we have realized the subtle body, the enjoyment body, and then we can do, as we will learn in our text, we can do anything, because we are masters of the body. When we become masters of the mind, we become masters of the body. So the true mastery of the mind is in the 8th stage of the bodhisattva path, called achala putung. In the non-moving stage, then we can move everything, and we can move it according to the needs of the beings, as we will learn. Then we are open for the full Buddha realization. So when we practice these paramis with the understanding of the uh, one dharma, our practice will conform to suchness, which we have never left, even in the deepest state of ignorance. And this suchness does not grasp, this suchness does not think, until he removes for long periods of time, due to the power of the vasanas of suchness. He removes what? He removes arising of the objects in the mind. Hmm? Due to the power of the suchness, he removes arising of the objects in the mind. So we have learned how does, before it is explained, how does one uh, how does one uh, adopt to the suchness? By understanding that, uh, by thinking through, hearing a lot, and through contemplating what we have heard, when one understands very clearly that when we think, it is the mind which is imbued with ignorance, which uh, make us removed from the power of the suchness, then we can study the samadhi of suchness, in which the mind does not move. When we have realized the faith, and when we have realized the nirvana, we can make the mind not think for a long time. But when we have realized the bodhisattva realization, then we can even, the Xu Lao Heshang, uh, the great bodhisattvas of our time, even in Chinese tradition, Tibetan tradition, we can stay in the samadhi of non-thinking even for a long, long time. So we become nearer and nearer to the true nature of our mind. But still, in order to live, we have to think. Like Xu Lao Heshang, when he practiced on the Zhongnan Shan, he stayed in samadhi for much longer than 1 week. When he prepared potatoes to eat when he gets out of samadhi, and his potatoes, they were the shoots long for like one, almost, I don't know, remember the measure, like half a meter long shoots, because he these potatoes, they become potato plants. So he must have stayed in samadhi for very, very long time. It is possible for a realized bodhisattva. It is not possible for us. But even when we stay without thinking for some time, and it is possible, then this permeation through the power of suchness, uh, we become kind of more and more familiar with it. This is Zen meditation. Hmm? We can approach it either through the Kung An, through the Koan. We can approach it through the Mojao, through the silent illumination. We can uh, approach it through the all kinds of means, Huato and so on, so that when we meditate on how our thinking uh, removes the clarity from the mind, then this thinking becomes something which we don't attach so much importance anymore. Then the samadhi uh, of suchness, which is yet only suchness by understanding, not yet direct realization, becomes a part of us. So these vasanas, or these latent tendencies of mind to ignorance, they become reduced. The text says they come to cessation. When they come to cessation, that is uh, the marga phala. the Tao Guo. What is the difference between the enlightened person and non-enlightened person? This is very important to understand. How do we know we are enlightened? Because anytime we can enter into the samadhi of Tao Kuo, of Marga Phala. If it is based on correct differentiation, then we can remember the nirvana and we uh, merge into that object based on correct differentiation in Javakas, based on faith in the bodhisattvas. But this is not yet a complete realization. The complete realization is when we have penetrated the non dual nature of the mind. That is a true Margaphala. Then a bodhisattva who is truly realized, then he can enter this Margaphala samadhi on the suchness and remain in suchness like Shi Yin Lao Hershang, remain in suchness even for weeks altogether. According to Theravada, Arahat, he can remain in samadhi for maximum 1 week. But if we become realized bodhisattvas, I don't have experience, but if we believe what is said about these realized bodhisattvas in Tibetan tradition, like Milarepa, or in Chinese tradition like Xi and Lao Hershan, then it is possible. So as thoughts do not arise, so the idea of there being a true object, gochara. Gochara, we have explained before. Sanskrit is a wonderful language. Gochara means the meadow on which the cow is grazing. So the mind to arise needs, like the cow to graze, needs an object, needs a meadow. So the mind, in order to arise, needs an object. But that object, we need samadhi to know that this object does not come from outside, it comes from the mind itself. When we have samadhi, then we can understand it. We can understand because in samadhi we have entered the mano manakaya, the shin sheng ti, the body created by the mind. It, so we know when we are in samadhi that the uh, objects come from the mind, they don't come from outside. Because we have isolated the mind from the outer objects. That is the condition of the samadhi. In our state of samadhi, which is not very deep, we can still be aware of the objects, not like the Buddha or like the great yogis, like Milarepa, who were not aware of any objects except their own thoughts. We can be aware of the objects, but they will not disturb the thought. This we can do even with our weak samadhi. So, mind does not give rise to objects, means does not give rise to thoughts. So, when it does not give rise to thought, then the idea of there being real objects on which the mind can graze, which the minds can catch as being really there, somewhere outside, it stops. So the we can slowly penetrate the causes and conditions of the arising of avidya, of non-science, which is understanding the objects as being something outside from the subject. But this impression comes from the mind which moves, which is the karmic mind. The true mind does not move, and that is to be understood. And when it does not move, it is empty of content and it is luminous. This is state of samadhi. Then the chitta lakshana, very wonderful word, sin xiang. Xiang means nimitta. And in Chinese tradition, especially if we want to understand Wei Shalun, the Yogacara, the uh, mere consciousness, when there is object, it is a sign of the object. The real object was never there. There was always only sign of the object. Hmm? The concept of the object. The real object was never there. What we see are the concepts of the object. Uh, what I see in front of me is a lamp, my mobile phone, the books, and a watch, a cup. All these are just concepts, which we see as such because of our memory stored in the continuity of the mind, in our alaya. But when we become birds, when we become gods, we will have very different concepts. And even in our state of existence, when we learn different cultures, stay in different cultures, then we see how much our concepts influence our thinking. Hmm? If you have a chance to go to South America and stay in Amazonas, these Indians, they have a very different concepts of what is real and what is not real. In Indonesia, maybe you can still find in remote places still human beings who have a very, very different concepts and very, very different ideas of the behavior and what is the correct behavior and what is not correct behavior. Hmm? That your Indonesia is a fascinating country for that. In Borneo, in Celebes and so on, still you can find such people just in South America. They have very different concepts from us. So when we have deeper understanding, we see what we actually cling to is not the reality, it is our concepts of reality which are stored in our mind. And this uh, storage in our mind, it is timeless. But if we penetrate the illusionary nature of ignorance and of thinking and of the uh, objects that we cling to due to thinking, then this load of the latent tendencies in our mind will decrease, and we become closer and closer to our true nature. from which we have never been separated. In this tradition, the nature of the mind is a Buddha. There is no other nature of the mind. So when uh, the symbols or pictures in the mind which give arising to the mind have been exhausted, we don't identify with them anymore at all. We just reflect the reality as it is. Then these latent tendencies become exhausted. So the ignorance ceases and we can attain nirvana. Here, nirvana means the true nirvana, which is non dualistic. So we can attain the Buddha nature, which has always been there. That's why it's called Fa Zhang, hmm? The Dharma, the store of Dharma, which is a true nature of the mind. So when we attain this true nature of our mind, we attain the true nirvana, and with it, the spontaneous action. Spontaneous action, zranye. So the zranye is connected with the understanding of the true nature of the mind. So the Vipassana, as explained, for example, in the Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, which is not now used, is to understand that all the names, all the concepts that are there, they are parikalpita, they are pienchi, they are reality which has never been there. Then the things that we see on the base of these concepts, that is our paratantra, yitha. It is our causality, it is our moving mind, it is our karma. Karma is a moving mind, and that moving mind is what we see on the base of the concept. But these concepts, they have no characteristics. And the Paratantra, as we see it, is based on concept, which don't have any true characteristics. Hmm? But because we impose true characteristics on it, we see something there which has own nature. Swabhava, which has Zishin. And on the base of this own nature, we then believe that what we differentiate by our concept is really there. In order to know that it is not really there, we need awareness. And when we have awareness, we understand that the concepts are not real, they are parikalpita, they are pienchi. What we see through the concepts, then the facts based on concept, they also cannot stand. And to impose a self-existent nature on them is lack of awareness. So the true nature of the mind is revealed. by awareness, hmm, then the power of true mind permeates the ignorance, and the veil of ignorance become thinner and thinner, and the power of suchness becomes more and more evident. So we less and less rely on illusionary mind. Hmm? Illusionary mind is a mind which clings to differentiation rather than seeing these differentiations are based on concepts which have no real characteristics as far as uh, the true reality of suchness is concerned. Hmm? So all this happens in the mind. The mind which does not see the suchness is the gross mind. That mind which sees the suchness is a subtle mind. Gross mind can only see the gross aspect of the ignorance. The subtle mind can start seeing the subtle aspect of the ignorance. Well, so let us finish here. Uh, Today we have talked a lot. Let me have some drink so that so next week we continue on this permeation or latent tendency of suchness permeating the mind and how it leads to our liberation. And this permeation of mind by suchness again is we will learn by gross consciousness, which is differentiating consciousness, and by subtle consciousness, which is manas. Hmm? When we have access to manas, to the subtle consciousness, then the deeper and deeper level of ignorance connected with not seeing one reality will be revealed to us. Okay, so let us finish here. And next week we start again, as usual, with questions and answers. So please prepare some good questions so that all of us can benefit from them. Give me a challenge. If you don't believe what the scriptures say, please say so. It is not my experience. I don't believe in it, and we can discuss. Buddha has taught us never to accept anything just because of the tradition, just because of the uh, because people say so. But we should give it, we should get the real gold by uh, working on it always, heating it, and again cooling it, heating it, cooling it, until we get a clear vision. Hmm? So this cooling it is like working with a gross mind, and heating it is like working with a mind which is so subtle and which can really burn the all the latent tendencies to defilements in us. Okay, so that much for today. Let us transfer merit for the benefit of all sentient beings. 愿以自功德 不计一切，我等一众生，皆空成佛道。May the merits of this practice spread to all beings, so that we attain the state of true realization, the state of Buddhahood. Om Mitoba. Okay, have a nice weekend and see you next week.